All right, so I have a branding company, and it's funny. I like what he said when he said he doesn't like branding, because I'm on the other side. And I agree with him. If you're only doing branding only, you're not going to get very far. But I don't like social media people. So it was funny. When I met him, he was telling the story about how we met, and it took a while, because whenever I meet a social media expert, I go into kill mode. And I want to hurt them. And I would take great pleasure in hurting social media people. But when I met Matt, there was a difference between him and a lot of people that I've met that kind of do some social media stuff. And one of the things that I liked that drew my attention was when you took his monthly course for whatever it's priced at, you can only graduate if you make $2,500, you get 5 new clients. And I thought, you know, for a social media person to actually stand behind their work financially and to push people to make more than they paid, I thought, wow, this guy, I got to pay attention. This is pretty cool. Because what I've found in branding is social media is very important if you need social media. So what I mean by that is if you're going swimming, you must wear a bathing suit, otherwise you may get arrested. So there's certain situations where you need certain things. So what I'm going to do before I just start talking is just a little bit of what I do and how I got here. So my whole life has been doing creative projects. I thought I was a musician for the first part of my life, so I moved to Asia and I accidentally got into a rock and rap band, and I played guitar with them and we toured, and the band did amazingly well. I was with Sony and BMG. We sold more albums than any album in Malaysian history. And we got a lot of awards and stuff, and that was cool. And it was fun, but in my music career, I kind of went to the top right away. And I didn't really want to end up being a token white guy. So I moved to Victoria, and within 2 weeks of doing this and touring and being in magazines and all these cool things for a 20-year-old are awesome, I went from that to being a roofer in Victoria just like that. And I couldn't have been happier with myself, and I didn't understand at the time why I would turn my back on something that was pretty cool to be a roofer, but for me, being a roofer was actually pretty cool. So I like creating things. I've always been on a journey just to build anything. So the thing I liked about roofing, oddly, was I was building stuff. I mean, the job sucks. It's a terrible, terrible job. I did it for 3 years. But at that point, I got in, and the other thing I wanted, my dream of being a musician was living in a van and getting drunk on stage in tiny little towns that nobody's ever heard of, and fighting with people and getting beer poured on me. That was, in my mind, that's what a rock musician did. They earned their way up by living in a van with a bunch of people, and I did that. So I lived in a van for 6 months, or every periodically we'd go on tour, and it was myself, my drummer, the singer, and the drummer's girlfriend. So if you're ever going to go on tour, don't take the drummer's girlfriend. It's not cool. There's cool moments, but it's not cool. So I did that, and then as I was going through that process, I was building houses. I got out of roofing after a while. I went and worked on a farm for a while. I went and worked at an airport for a while. I worked at an airport for 2 years. And this is somewhere that actually some of you have probably seen my work. If you've ever, has anyone here ever flown before? Say some flyers. Have you ever given them your bag and it was a certain way and you got it back and it was different? So some of the common suspects are, you know, the handles are gone. So I was that guy. I would remove handles from bags. Not on purpose. It's just sometimes you pick them up and half of it stays with you and half of it doesn't. But it was cool because in that job, I worked in a union environment. Now, I don't know if you know this. If anyone here is in a union, I mean no disrespect, but those people are different. They think different. Their values are different. What they fight for is different. But it was a very nice contrast from a drunk drummer and his girlfriend. It was also a nice contrast from rappers in Malaysia. So after that, I did the music thing for about 10 years, and I got to a point where, you know, living in a house with 10 people and touring in a van and being a roofer and all these things, I thought, okay, I've kind of exhausted that. I kind of looked forward, and I thought, you know, I don't want to be 50 years old living in a van with my drummer's girlfriend. And it just kind of came to a point where I realized the way for me to exercise my creativity was not music. So when I was 27, I went from living in a van or living with 10 people to living in my parents' basement in Sydney which was awesome. And I did that for 2 years, and it was very humbling. It was a very interesting experience to go from all of that to Sydney. So, and what I did when I was there is I started to explore, okay, now the whole thing that I thought I was going to be is done. So what am I going to do? All I could articulate was I wanted to work with computers, and I wanted to work with art. That's all I could articulate at the point. And the first thing that I found was AutoCAD. So I took AutoCAD, and through there, a recruiting guy was there kind of picking students, and I went for an interview with a high-tech company, and it was a cartography company. I'd never heard of cartography, partially because I didn't go to university. I don't have a degree. So they approached me, and I negotiated a job with them, and I didn't get it. But so then what happened is, as I was taking AutoCAD, I kept telling my teacher, how do I make this stuff move? How do I put sound in there? And he said, well, that's animation. I went, cool. So I went to the only school in Victoria that had an animation program. This was 13 years ago, and it was like 20 grand for 10 months. Don't take it, because when you're done, you're not qualified for anything. But I took it. I paid 20 grand. And when it was done, 13 years ago in Victoria, I probably don't need to tell you that there wasn't an enormous amount of jobs for animators in Victoria, fresh out of school, with a big debt, and just a little bit of knowledge. So what I did was I started my own company. I became an engineer, not an engineer, no, I became an animator, I became an entrepreneur. And that company really didn't go very far, but we did a couple of animations. One of them played in Tribeca in New York, which is a really cool festival. We also got aired on Anime. It's a film festival in Brussels, Belgium, which was really cool. I never got to go to any of this, by the way, which kind of sucked. We also played in the Vancouver Film Festival, which was cool, and Toronto. And we didn't make a penny. Nothing, because the client didn't pay us. But we did all of our jobs. But what it was me just trying to find out what can I do professionally, and what can I do with myself to articulate what I want to do. And I didn't realize it at the time, but with all the different jobs and all the different things I'd done, it all boiled down to one thing. I like creating stuff. And because I created so many different things and worked on farms and Starbucks and all these different things, I did a count once, it was about 35 different jobs. I was even a door-to-door salesperson. I don't recommend that at all, by the way. Don't do it. So what I realized, though, I'd been studying people, studying personalities. And it kind of came to a point where, the animation company didn't work, so I went back to that high-tech company and I took the job. And I became a cartographer. And that basically means I became a mapper. So here I am now sitting with an engineering job with no degree, which was awesome. So I learned that I could sell myself, which was cool. So after, as I was working there, I kept complaining about their website. Are there any engineers in the crowd? So engineers, when they make creative projects, they think differently than artists and stuff like that. So they had an engineered-based brand. It wasn't terrible. It was articulate. It had all the facts in it, but it didn't connect to humans at all. It was very fact-based and cold. So me, the one who always talks too much, I'd go out for lunch with my colleagues and say, God, this website sucks. And I naively thought they would never tell anyone that I hated everything about their company. So over a 3-month period, I kept just, I'd go out with someone, have a beer, I'm like, yeah, that all sucks. And I didn't realize that I was actually being listened to. So one day, I'm sitting in my desk doing my cartography business, and my boss comes over, the guy who hired me, and he says, can I talk to you for a minute? And I'm like, absolutely. Thinking, I'm good, now I'm becoming a cartographer, this is awesome, I'm learning something. So he goes into his office, he closes the door. So I close the door, and he goes, so I hear you don't like our website. Oh, the backpedaling started, let me tell you. I'm like, no. He's like, no, it's okay, it's fine. You're now our director of marketing. I said, what? I said, I don't even know what marketing is. And I said, so what do you want me to do? And he looked at me again. He said, you're our director of marketing. And I went dead silent. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, you're the director of marketing. That's all he would say. So I sat there long enough, and it got really uncomfortable, so I just left. And I went back, and I sat at my desk for about 2 months, and I don't think I did anything for 2 months, because I went there to learn high-tech stuff. I went there to learn more about computers, because I thought that would make me more valuable. But inside of me, I like to create things. So I think it was a couple of months later, I went back into his office, and I went, I can do anything I want, right? He's like, yep. Can I change the website? Yep. Can I update the look of the company? Yep. I'm like, oh, Sweet. So I ran out of his office, went back to my desk, and then I came back, I'm like, do I have to do any of those other tasks anymore? He's like, nope. I'm like, oh, sweet. So I went to all my project managers and said, I'm out. And that's where I actually learned marketing. So I spent 3 years with that company, and I completely repositioned them. I didn't have a clue what I was doing at all. But remember, I had 35 jobs. I had a lot of experience with humans. So what I got exposed to was the brand they had was very narrow, and it really didn't focus on anything. It basically just said, this is who we are, just stuff. So I went division by division through their company, and I studied them, and I spent time with each manager. And then what I did was I started going to all their trade shows to see what other people thought. We had like 5 different things that we sold that were very different. And we had one trade show booth with a couple of things on it that didn't make any sense. So I soon realized, well, that's not going to work. So it was my mission for 3 years to simplify everything and target all of the markets, change the website, build CD-ROMs for them, and do everything. And then at the end of that, I realized, actually I read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And for a while, I was very upset that I wasn't making any money. I'm flying to Chicago, doing trade shows, and doing all these wonderful things, and I thought I was a big businessman. And then I got my paycheck, $13 an hour, and I was like, oh, this is all BS, and I started fighting back. And then I read Robert Kiyosaki's book and told me to shut up. And he said, you know, if somebody offers you $10 an hour and you take it, don't get mad at them. So instantly my demeanor changed, and I said, okay. So then I started going into work early, and I started leaving work late. And that's when I started to become an actual, a valuable asset to their company. And I also made another decision. I had another year with that company, and the decision was I would make more money if I could figure out how to do this for 10 companies at once. I'd already had a company. I already knew I could sell. I already knew that I could package myself. But I also knew that if I worked there for 1.5 years and left, and their company wasn't finished, what am I going to say? Hi, I'm a branding guy, and I quit halfway through every time, and I'll do that for you? No problem. No, I couldn't do that. So I waited till the job was done, and they got some success, but I also taught myself how to package it up so somebody else could take over for me. And it just seemed logical to me that if I leave, I can't strand them. So I made all of the systems, all of the packages, everything for them so they could duplicate once I left without thinking. I learned later that that's called brand standards, and I can make a heck of a lot of money selling it, which was awesome. So I left the company about 8 years ago now, and I came to Vancouver, and I started Living Blueprint. And at that point, and I'll give you just a little bit about Living Blueprint. The reason being is, as I go through my presentation, there's going to be some examples that are actually quite big. But what I'm going to teach you is not what decisions to make, but how to make decisions. And I'm using a big example because the structure underneath big or small is identical. It does not change. So don't get scared off when I show a big company, because I run mine exactly the same. And as some of the principles I'm going to show, some of them are a luxury for a company that's been around for a few years and you're starting to figure things out. But when I started my company and I didn't have it figured out, I just picked something. When we started, I said I was a trade show expert because I'd done enough trade shows. I'd done it like 10 times. For one company, but I'd done it 10 times. I'd only done one brand, so I didn't say I was a branding guy because I didn't know enough. But I knew trade shows. So when Living Blueprint started, we were a trade show development company. And in my first year, we made 30 grand, and I sold one $300 banner. That was it. But it got me in the room, and at least I got to focus people a little bit, and I had something to say. So when I started my company, I just chose what was ever close to me that I thought I could sell. But as I grew, and as I started to learn more about me and what the market wanted, I started to focus. So some of these things, you might be halfway through, you might be at the beginning, you might be at the end. Think of it as a puzzle. If you have a puzzle and you have all the pieces on the table, it's easier to make. But sometimes when you start a puzzle, there's pieces missing and you don't know. You got to get them, you got to find them. So on that note, I don't even know what time we're at, but on that note, I'm going to go to my first slide here. So what we're going to do, and you know what, today it's a talk. But what I'd actually like you guys to do, treat it like a workshop. Get those pens working for you, because there's some ideas here that might be able to help you, and I'm hoping that they do. Because as we build brands for clients, these are the principles that I use. And I'm going to start with a quick aside. He mentioned I work with an airline. When I started working with them, and he might not like what I'm going to say, the first thing I told them was stop social media and don't touch your website. And The airline was very shocked when I told them that because nobody else had ever told them that before. Everybody had told them, social media, social media, social media. But I said, hold on a second. How do we know it's social media? I said, why don't we take some time first and figure it out? I've been with this airline now for 2.5 years. There's a video from the owner on my website that basically states we've raised their revenue 28%. And you want to know something? We're just finishing their new website now. And for the first time in 2.5 years, I took control of their Facebook page at Christmas, and we put up a little Christmas ad. So with no Facebook, with no Twitter, only with a brand, what we did was we found out where does their money come. And I'm going to walk through this very clearly and slowly with you. And if you have questions, chuck them at me. That's what I'm here for. And we figured out where does their money come from, what do they need to hear, but we also figured out why they're important. We simply articulated it to the right people, and we raised their revenue by 28% in 2.5 years. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go nuts on social media, which is why I like Matt, because we're probably going to hire him, because he knows things that I don't know. So I agree with him, and I agree with myself. Branding on its own, you need more. Facebook, Twitter on its own, it's not good enough. So now I want to walk through a framework at the beginning, and write down the framework, because what I'd like you to do after, if you like the framework, and if you believe me that these things work, I'd like you to try it out. Just check it out. So, actually wait, the title, Establishing a Consistent and Authentic Voice for Your Brand. So let's rip that apart and put it back together. That's the goal for the next hour, or 45 minutes, whenever he tells me to stop. So what does consistent mean? I looked it up in the dictionary. What does consistent mean? It means unchanging in achievement or effect over a period of time. That's consistent. Doesn't change. It also means not containing any logical contradictions. Now, if you get to know me, you'll notice that I'm absolutely full of them, but the one contradiction that doesn't change, I'm full of other stuff too, but the one thing that doesn't change is my belief systems. So, in other words, there. Get your exclamation marks together. So now the next word in there that I thought was important is authentic. So what does authentic mean? My industry has been known for lying. Advertisers are known for lying. I'll prove it to you. Ever heard the term truth in advertising? That was a concept that had to get made because there was so much BS out there. This product is this and that product is that. And there was so much of it that just wasn't true. They came up with a concept called truth in advertising. How sad is that? We had to rewrite our industry like 3 or 4 decades ago because we're all full of crap. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being authentic. Be who you are and what you are. So what does that mean? It's based on facts and it's accurate. So one thing that I see a lot in the real estate industry is top 1%. I think 50% of the real estate people in the world are in the top 1%. I told you I didn't go to university, but I know there's something wrong with that. It's BS. So one thing I do, there's this guy named Jason Sofrovich. Go have a look at his website. He's sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses. He doesn't say top 1%. I notice the people who say top 1% sell about 5 to 7 houses a year. So what they've done is they said, well, I don't sell anything, so I might as well just tell you I sell stuff. Don't do that. And if you're in real estate and you've done that, don't tell anyone right now, but change it before we all go and check tomorrow. Because it doesn't mean anything. And when people figure it out, your authentic token is gone. So, undisputed origin. What that means, and this is out of the dictionary, what that means is you didn't make it up. It's true. When I take brands, I don't get enamored, or when I work with a new company, I don't get enamored by their vision book and their vision and their vision board and all the little cutouts from magazines they've thumbtacked to the wall. I like them because it gives me bearings on where they think it's possible for them to go, but how I learn about a company is I study where they've been. Who were you? What do you have? What are your assets? And what do those mean? And is there an opportunity to articulate that to your market in a way you've never done before? That's what I'm interested in. That's how you make money. You do marry that with where you want to go, but what if you're wrong in where you want to go? Has anyone here ever watched American Idol? Have you noticed that there's kind of 2 categories on that show? There's people All you have to do is go to YouTube and type in epic fail, and you see these people that are so enamored by how incredibly good singers they are. It's wonderful, and they can't believe how good they are. And they tell you. And then they go and sing, and we all know instantly they can't. That's why I don't get enamored with your vision board. Because that girl or boy who can't sing, maybe they're an incredible composer. And that's okay. So it's really important to understand what you would like to achieve. But I would argue definitively by the work I've done and the success we've had with clients to focus on what you're actually capable of and be authentic. So one of the things for us that I learned, for us it's undeniable honesty. I had a client call me once and say, "Can you put a green page on my website?" And I said, "You don't do anything green." He's like, "Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We have to recycle all of the stuff that we take off of the cars we work on." And I said, "So let me get this straight. The government mandates you to recycle, so that makes you a green company?" "Yes." I said, "No, that's a law. There's a difference between law and green. And if you're dancing that fine line, you are not authentic, my friends. You are absolutely not. Green, to me, is you go out of your way to make the world better based on your philosophy and why you exist. You don't do it because it sounds good. So if your brand is full of things that sound good but aren't true, get rid of them, because once you figure out what is true and you connect it properly, it's considerably more powerful to your audience, and it will change your pocketbook. It will raise your money." So, the other thing about all this stuff, it's not a sales pitch. You don't walk into a company and say, "I'm good because I'm honest." No, who gives a crap? It is important, but it's not a sales pitch. So what is it? So now let's take another look. Let's peel another layer of the onion off. So, key elements. In a way, all of these kind of fit under branding, but I'm going to show you a different way to look at branding. I've heard this explained 1,000 different ways by 1,000 different people. Some of them I find brilliant. Some of them I think they're confused, and hopefully that's not me. But the brand, I'm going to show you a theory that I have on branding. And the theory is the brand has one and one job only. That job, it's very simple. It must be trusted, professional, and reliable. So, would you buy something from a company you don't trust at all? Would you go back to a company that's completely unprofessional? Yeah. Would you go back to a company that's unreliable, meaning you ordered from them once and you didn't get it? Would you go back? No. And there's a whole bunch of things and characteristics of a brand, about emotions and all of this, but I'm challenging that, and I'm saying, you know what, those are in there, but they're not in the brand. The brand's job is to be trusted, professional, and reliable. I'm going to show you some examples of this, too. The next part is values. The values are your beliefs and culture. I've put these in a very specific order, and for my company, it took me 6 years to go back to the beginning and work on my beliefs and culture, because I didn't have a belief in a culture until I lived it for 6 years, and then I could figure out what it was. I had to unravel it. And I would wager we're all the same. Good to Great, if you've ever read the book by Jim Collins, states very clearly, the biggest companies in the US, when they say we want to be deliberate, we want to bring out our corporate values, we want to know who we are, Good to Great stated on their research, which is easily documented and checked, that it took an average of 5 years hiring the best consultants on the planet, spending all the money in the world, and studying it took 5 years. So if you feel embarrassed because you can't figure your values out in 5 minutes, don't worry, you're not alone. The smartest of the smartest and the biggest of the big can't do it that fast either. And that's why I'm saying these concepts here, sure, they might be big. Sure, the example I'm showing you is big, but you know what? It's just groups of people trying to figure it out. So the next part is offer. So what do I mean by offer? Well, if you got a company and you want to stay alive tomorrow, you better offer something. Because if you don't, you're either a charity, but you're still offering something. You're a nonprofit, you're still offering something. You can't get away from that. You got to offer something. So it's a product or a service. So now positioning, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, and this is where Facebook and these things start to kind of poke their heads out a little bit, a little bit. Positioning is cost and quality. That's it. Now you could say, well, positioning, no, it's about emotions and it's about feeling. No, it's not. Because the cost and quality is the nucleus of that. because those will tell you what the personality, which is next, should be. So if your cost and quality are at a certain level and they have a certain criteria about them, now you start shaping the personality, and the personality's job, it has a job. It's rapport. That's the little thing you chuck out there to try and get other people to attach to. And my version of rapport, and I didn't check the dictionary on this one, but from what I understand about rapport, it's about multiple or a couple of people or entities being in alignment. Now I tell you, if you want to sell something, you better be in alignment with the person who wants to buy it off you. Because if you're not, they're not going to buy it off you. They might do it once or twice, but they're going to go and look for other people that they're in alignment with. So, we've got these. If there's any questions, just chuck them at me. The next one is brand. So this is the big example I was telling you about, okay? I understand that I'm not a Fortune 500 or 100 company that's global. I understand that most people in this room aren't too. So how many people in this room own a company? Hands. What do we got? Awesome. How many people in this room work for somebody else? Good. So we're all in a position here. So we've all got something. So with these guys, this is a big brand. Now, when I think of Honda, I used to have a Honda Civic. Now remember, the job of this is to be trusted, professional, and reliable. When I think of the positioning of a Honda Civic, which is the car that I had, the Honda Civic is fun, it's youthful, it's all these wonderful characteristics. But this here is helping me prove my point, because if you look at their nucleus brand, this is Honda.com, it's not exciting. There's not big pictures of wonderful things. The reason being is that's not what this is for. You see across the top there, those the gray bars, the Honda automobiles, then there's the middle one is like motorbikes, there's Acura, there's all these things. They make jets too, by the way. So the thing is, on this brand, which is bigger than our brands, principles don't change, is what they chose to do, because their products are so astronomically different, they chose to use Honda.com to do exactly what it says above. Be trusted. They're not trying to enamor you and tell you who you are. They're not trying to get alignment with you. They're not trying to tell you that families are great. They're not trying to tell you should go golfing with your kids and use an SUV. No, they left it all out. So why did they do that? We'll get to that in a few slides. So now let's look at values. Now, I apologize to you because when I hear people talk about what you shouldn't do in a presentation, they say, don't cover it with words, but this is important. I got to get all their values, and we're going to read them verbatim, and I'm sorry, but it's important because it'll help us understand how these things fit and how, and most importantly, you guys can start looking at your companies and learning how to incorporate these in. So, beliefs and culture. Respect for the individual. Now, just because they're big and just because we're small, does that mean that we can't have that? Of course not. It's a human characteristic. The next one, the three joys. When I first read this, buying, selling, and creating, I went, wait a second. You guys value buying? And then I thought, well, wait a second. If they don't sell anything, they're done. They're out of business. So what they choose to do then, if they're going to sell something, they're going to sell good stuff. I like this part. Supplying products to the largest or of the highest quality at a reasonable price for a worldwide audience. Remember, cost and quality. So they've got this right in their ethos, and this is on their personality page, or psychology page, what is it, profile page? You can find it easily. I found it very quickly. But the other thing that I liked, and they had this just random, so I thought I would put it random too, they have do not imitate. That's part of their culture, it's part of their brand, it's why they exist. They don't want to imitate, which is cool. Now this is a little bit of a chunk. The management policies proceed always with ambition and youthfulness. Respect sound theory, develop fresh ideas, make the most effective use of time. The reason I put these all in is because I can do all these in my company, and I know we all can, except for the global thing. Enjoy work and encourage open communication. Strive constantly for a harmonious flow of work, and be ever mindful of the value of research and endeavor. So where did that get them? Where did all these nice words they put down about being good humans get them? All kinds of places. Did you know they're one of the leading researchers for soy on the planet? I learned that yesterday when I was researching them. How cool is that? They also have jets. They also are into human movement. That little guy up in the top there, the little butt with the thing on it, they're helping people who can't walk, because they're into mobility. So all of these different things that they do, that's their values, that's their culture, that's why they exist, that's what we can feel when we look at their products. So they're not just trying to make 50 bucks off me. They're actually trying to make the world a better place. They believe in something. But it's not trite, it's not obvious, and they don't beat the crap out of you in their advertisements by saying, we believe. And I'll show you in here how that can actually upset the apple cart. So the offer, the product and service, now this is where things start to change for these guys. So they have these brands here. Lots of brands. Now the brands are actually sub-brands. You could call this a house of brands if you want. But their offers are very, very different. And the reason they're different is because why they made them and why people buy them is different. Needs and wants. So here's something about positioning that I like. On one side, we have emotional. I love it. I've got to buy it. I love it. The other side is a transaction. Think of buying something on the internet. You don't need to like the company. You do need to trust that they're not going to steal your credit card, though. You do need them to be a little bit professional so you can actually trust putting your credit card in. You want them reliable. You still want that nucleus. That's why sometimes when you go to a website to buy something and it's a terrible website and it looks like crap and the pictures are stolen, you don't want to put your credit card in because it missed the first 3 points. But you don't always have to be emotional. So what does emotional mean? Cost and quality, what does that mean? Well, Honda racing is emotional. It's fun, it's exciting, your heart goes crazy. It's fantastic. Racing is cool. The next one, Acura, I put that as emotion as well. The reason I did that was when I looked at it, they sell to you and they got all these beautiful pictures, and I'll show you these beautiful pictures of a lifestyle that's nice. I'd like that. The other one is Honda Civic. I put that on emotional too. The motorbikes are cool, they're fun, it's an emotional purchase. And then you have Honda Marine, which, how cool is that? Go out and go fishing? That's fun, it's an emotional purchase. But the one that I took away from emotional purpose is the jets. The reason I did that, I love jets. But they start at $4.5 million. So my love only goes so far. So I moved them over a little bit to a transaction because I realize that probably I'm not the only one in this room that loves jets. But it's cost prohibitive, so I moved the little bugger over, and I'm leaving it there, unless somebody can prove me different. But now let's go over to transactional. They have that too. So for transactional, the Honda engines, and this guy, look, they don't even care about it. Look, all these other logos look like they put some time in. The other one, I don't know who did that. I think the receptionist did it. No disrespect to receptionists, but they're not branding people. What does it say? It says power equipment. They don't even care. It's a transaction. You don't go, oh my God, I can't wait till our engine destroys itself so I can go buy a new one. No, you don't. You go, my engine blew, I'm going to go buy a new one. It's a transaction. That's it. So what I'd like you to do when you look at your companies is think about it. How far on the emotional side are you? And you know what? Either side is profitable. It's about your business model beyond that. Doesn't matter what side you're on, but the thing to understand is what side are you on? So you speak in respect of that side. So now let's go to personality. The personality, this is the tool that you use to gain rapport with your target market so you can make money. Because if you don't gain rapport, you can't sell your products. And if you don't gain rapport, nobody cares what you believe. It's irrelevant. You're done. So in this one, we saw the first little website here, and its job is just to be trusted. But now let's go a little bit deeper and have a look at these guys. So I believe the next slide, if I remember how I did it, there we go. This looks like a video game. And when I looked at that, I thought, well, why would they do that? And I thought, well, who races? Ever seen the little Hondas that have little sticker packages and they look like they put shopping cart handles on the back? That's their target market. It's the little racing guys that want to go out and race. Their credibility in there is the Formula One cars that we saw in the last slide. They know how to make racing cars. And they make them so you can tune them. So they realize that these kids are going to put a lot of money into their car. So what they said was, let's give them a great car that they can tune up, but let's leave some space in the price so they can actually afford the little handlebar for the back. Let's go to the next one. That's one demographic. Look at these guys. They're going out boating. How cool is that? Totally different website, totally different market. And now do you see why Honda.com doesn't allude to any of this? Because which one would you choose? This is 2. I think there's 8 of these we're going to go through that are all astronomically different. So boating, it's a very different mindset. The person who buys a boat is a different person. So now we look at lawnmowers, not sexy, you need to cut the lawn. I don't know if people have ever put, if you've made a vision book or if you've made a little list of things you want to do, I would challenge that nobody in this room has ever put cut the lawn on it. Buy a boat, however, and travel around the world, possibly. Get a sports car, possibly. Compete in a motocross race, possibly. You're not going to put that on there. That's why it looks like that. But they do realize that it is a home purchase. So they made it a little nice, but let's go one step further. So when the engine blows, look at that. There's no love. It's just a little engine because it's a transaction. So I got a question for you. If you're going to make a Facebook page for these guys, would you choose one of these, or would you go back to the nucleus of the Honda brand and do it there? No. You'll pick who is on Facebook and where you make your money. That's what you're going to do. So your Honda page doesn't focus on these little engines. It focuses on civics because they make a lot of money with those, and it's emotional. And people go there and they'll post pictures of their cars with handlebars on the back because it's cool and they want to share it. So as you're looking at your company, you're not necessarily going to put everything on your Facebook page. And what I found out about these guys, and I didn't show it because I'm not teaching Facebook today, there's people in this room far more qualified than me, but what I saw is they actually have an Acura page and they have a Honda page. You can find other pages, but actually a lot of the distributors and people who sell their products make their own pages, so it can be a little difficult to find the actual Honda ones. But they focus on where their biggest market is, where the most people will go, but they also understand on Facebook, it's not the kind of place where you go to search for little tiny two-stroke engines. You're going on Facebook because you like to look at pretty pictures, you like to chat with your friends, so that's the product that they put on there. So this guy here, Honda. It's cool. It's a nice looking car. You can pick the car you want. They don't go so far as to put a guy with a dog and his wife because their product line covers too much. So what they did is they made it look great. So you look at, oh, I want that car. That's a beautiful car. As you dig, it'll get more direct. Now, we've got this. Now, this looks out of focus, right? So who races those motorbikes? Kids. What's the height of technology now? What are all the movies doing? 3D. They made the website in 3D, which I think is going to give you a headache. But you can put 3D glasses on and look at that picture, and it comes out of the screen. I think that's what they're getting at. Let me tell you, they did not use the same process on Honda Jet. So now we look at Acura. So remember when we looked at Honda? It was a beautiful picture of a car, but they didn't say too much about you. They didn't lead you too much. Here they do, because now we're getting into a luxury product. And luxury products have a certain connotation. Nice places, nice things, a life you would like to get to. Because let's face it, Acura is a very nice car. And some people would say my dream car is an Acura. But really, if you're getting an Acura, when a guy pulls up in a Maserati beside you, you look over and go, oh, that's nice. Do you think he does that to you? Honestly? No. He either says, my parents bought it for me, or I used to have one of those. So they realize thoroughly that they can only go so far in this category, because if they went too far, you're going to go, no, I'm going to go buy a BMW or an Aston Martin or a Maserati. So they know their range. So the next one here, look at this. Very different. This is closer to Aston Martin or Maserati type advertising. Why? Because it started at $4.5 million. So they changed there. So their main Facebook page doesn't focus on that, by the way, because a lot of rich people don't go on Facebook to figure out what they're going to buy. So if you sell things worth $4.5 million, your Facebook strategy has to be very careful. Go after their friends and their kids, but you're not going to get them, more than likely. So in the gain rapport section, my point by articulating this and spending some time on it is not that I want you to make 10 different pages. These guys would probably kill me for saying that. But the key is evaluate what's going to go on those pages, and also evaluate, if you're a lawyer, you got solicitation on one side and you have wills and estates on the other side, your choice is to just make text-based pages with titles on. If you've ever seen a lawyer's website, that's what they do. But you could go one step further, and on the wills and estates, you could put, family. And on the other side, for solicitation, you could put a guy standing in front of a judge barking at him to show your strength. And that's just the beginning. But most lawyers' pages, they just put the title and a big paragraph, and that doesn't work. Connect. So when we look at these, it's just ideas. Because my company didn't go this far, because I don't make jets. So what's the goal? A connection between humans and companies. That's really the goal, everyone, is to connect your company to humans. There's other aspects of that. Another one, it's a connection of values and beliefs. That's what you want to do. You want people to say, I share that with you. That's really cool. I like you. Lululemon is successful because people like Lululemon. And because when they opened their store, they said, if you come in naked, you leave clothed. And a whole bunch of people went there naked, which obviously made the news. And then everybody knew who Lululemon was. But what he believes is in personal development and yoga. He got you on his belief system, and his product is good. The next part, you're going to connect needs and wants. I'm going to show you in the next few slides that you're connecting needs and wants for you and your target market. Because you have needs and wants too. And if you neglect those, you go bankrupt. The world is very cold that way. And sometimes it is literally just a transaction. Someone went on your website, they downloaded a book, and they paid you $12. That's okay. And the more they can do that, the better for you. Because it's easy. So, let's begin strategy. Now the reason to, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was thinking when you just said transaction, that's okay. How do you think the micropayments changes branding?
I don't think it changes branding. But what I think for micropayments and all of these things, you still have to go back, and if I'm going to make a micropayment, I want to make it on a website that looks credible. So it actually just kind of, it funnels into it. Because you could make a brand around it, and there are companies doing that, but they still focus back on trust. And trust, if you're doing micropayments, that's the most important thing. 10 cents here, 10 cents there. So begin strategy, there's a couple of points here. And I do want you to write them down, because this is how you can look at yourself. This is how I look at myself. This is how I look at our clients. Where does your money come from? Why didn't we use Facebook and a website for the airline? Because that's not where their money came from. Not the biggest part of their market. Now that we've got the biggest part of their market and they're responding, now we're going to go to the next part of their market, and we're going to focus on Facebook. So, what do the consumers or customers, what do they need exactly? What do they want exactly? Starbucks realized people didn't want coffee. They wanted community. And before him, most small shops like that had do not loiter done on 8.5 by 11 and taped to the window. He took those down and said, come stay with us for a while and study. He knew what they wanted and he knew what they needed. They needed a legal drug to keep them awake. And they needed a place to do it in where they weren't going to get arrested, and he realized we weren't in Amsterdam, so his limits were set. The next one, this is an interesting one. And this is why we didn't do Facebook and we didn't touch the website. What are the required touch points? What are the required visible points? If your strategy is to do what everybody else does, if your strategy is to jump onto the bandwagon, that's great if it fits this criteria. If the bandwagon doesn't fit the criteria, stop for a while. Think for a while. And go back through some of the stuff that I've shown you here and just start to look where things fit and think differently. I'd love to say I came up with that, but I didn't. Steve did. So now what? Now what? We got all these things. We've packed some ideas in our head and some shape about what a brand could be, what a company could be. So where are you? You guys don't care about Honda. I don't care about Honda. We can study them. The other reason I use that is because go and look at them after. They're easy to find. So you can go and have a look and see if you agree or disagree with me, and I would encourage you to do so. So where are you on a little scale? Because on one side you got emotional, and on the other side you've got transactional. So now I'm going to use two different examples that are micro, and there's one on either side. And I've put items into each category so we can evaluate them, not debate them, because I had to make some assumptions. So we're not going to debate, because we could debate all day. The debate isn't the point. The point is there's things in each category that we can use for ourselves. So, bouncy there. So we got a pizza shop, little tiny pizza shop. A girl who's interning with me works for a pizza shop. So we talked about it last night, and I said, how does the pizza shop work? So, multiple small sales. That's how they make their money. Right there. So, what do they need? The N, by the way, I encoded this a little bit based on the questions. The N is volume. They need volume. Because if they only sold to one person a day, they'd make $3. Not going to work. So then, what is their want? A higher cost per sale. So if they're making $3 on average per sale now, their want is to get that to 4. Then 5, because their market will stop at a certain point. And if you're not at that certain point, that's called opportunity. So if your market will give you $5 per sale and you're only getting 3, you have an opportunity to get $2 more. And that's business analyst stuff. But it is branding stuff as well. That's an opportunity. The next one is what do we see? What are their visible touch points? They have a shop, they have delivery, a delivery person, they have ads, they have a website, they have a brand, and they have a cashier. Those are the visible, tangible points that people can see. That's where your opportunities are to change $3 to $4. So you got to be realistic in that. Now let's have a look at the other side of this. There's always two sides of a coin. If you're going to sell something, it helps to have someone to buy it, otherwise you're dead. So the patron. What AJ told me is it's usually students. That's the first one. They sell mostly to students. The next one is families. And if we had a third category, we could just lump every other human who's had a piece of pizza in their life. But the big part is students because of their location and small families. So what does a small family and a student need? They need food. What do they want? Cheap and good. And the place she works apparently has cheap and good pizza, and people come when they visit Vancouver. They go to the place specifically because they love the food. So AJ, what is the pizza place called? Uncle Fatty's. So apparently it's a really good pizza place. I'm going to go check it out. So what do you see? What does the patron show the shop owner? What's his opportunity to interact with you? You have your personality when you're in there. There's emotions, but there's also Facebook. Facebook would work very well here. Because you could put pictures of yourself having a piece of pizza at Uncle Fatty's and say, this was awesome. And you'll share it with your friends, because apparently we all love putting pictures of food on Facebook and commenting on it. Matt, help me out. I don't know why people do that, but we do. I did it last week because we had food in the office, so we posted it. Sorry, I'm one of those people. The next part, let's go to the other side. Way on the other side, government. This one's fun, and this is highly debatable. We're not debating. Where does government get its money from? Us. Taxpayers. They also have fines and things. I think one of us has been fined before. They have that, but let's just leave it at taxpayers. Now, what do they need? They need solutions. What do they want? Social order. And I'm not saying that we have Stalin or anyone running this place, but I'm just saying it's in the government's benefit to have social order. So what? Now, I'm going to take this to the transaction of somebody selling to government. What do they see? They see the procurement office, and they see an RFP, which is a request for proposal. I'm going through a transaction here. So on the other side of the transaction, we have consultants. The consultants, they get their money through RFPs, requests for proposals. They see a request for a proposal. The government doesn't care how many friends you have on Facebook. The government doesn't actually be scared off by it, because then they'd start to feel intimidated. The other thing is, with the RFP, it's strict guidelines. If you use the wrong font, their standards crew will go find out that you used the wrong font, and they will delete you like that because you are not listening to them. That's how RFPs work. It's that specific. And I'll tell you something right now. We don't do a lot of work for consultants because they don't need brands. They need RFPs. They need to get on lists, and they need to submit to an RFP. So what then does a consultant want? They want a livelihood. They want to help out. I've noticed most consultants that I know, they just have this need to help out society, which is cool. And if you're one of them, great. I'm kind of like that too. I have lots of friends who do it. So what does the government see from this person? Notice Facebook isn't on the list. You know what's on the list? They see a proposal, they see an invoice, and they see the project. Transaction-based. That's way on that side. So now between that, everybody, is all of us. We're in there somewhere. So as you're gauging how much money you put into your brand, if you're a consultant, get a business card, get a decent logo, and go and network and hunt for RFPs and get on lists. If you're on the other side, and you're an emotional-based purchase, make yourself a brand, feel it, believe something. Bring out what you believe and go on a process to understand who and what you are and why you exist. And then start to articulate that in your brand, because it's going to be important. So let's go to the next one here. How am I doing for time, Matt? Okay. So, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of where this is out of whack. And there's bad things that happen when it's out of whack. If you work for a company and you're not making any money, there's a possibility I might show you a piece of it right here. So if you're money focused, and what that means is, I don't give a crap about you, but I love your wallet. Man, that's a nice wallet. Can I get in there? That's money focused. So the company is now money focused. They need money. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. Maybe they're bankrupt, maybe they're going bankrupt, maybe this, maybe that. Whatever it is, there's a million reasons that people need money. And they're upset because they need money. And you know how dogs can smell fear? We can smell that when people try and sell us stuff. We are like dogs when it comes to people trying to pull the wool over our eyes and screw us over and get money out of our pocket. And that makes the consumer, like that, mad. And you get no loyalty out of it. So if you hear things from your boss, or if you are the boss, and you say, I want money, and that's your corporate brand, and that's your brilliant strategy, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying check yourself a little bit and see if it'll actually work, because if it pisses off your consumer, you're not going to make any money, so you got to rethink it. So now let's flip it right to the other side. So now you focus on love. You go, okay, I got you, David, I get it. I was focusing on money, so I'm going to switch to love. Well, not exactly. Because now you've got your company focusing on love. You go and hug everybody. And have you ever seen these people? They run their company for a long time, and then they go see a seminar, and some jackass like me tells you you got to love everything. And for the next 2 weeks, they go in, and when you're sitting at your desk, your boss comes up and says, I just love you. You know, I love this company, and I love everything you're doing, and it's great. And they phone their companies, I love your business, and 2 weeks later, it's gone. It doesn't work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying show up with a big, shiny, fake smile. That's not it. People can see that. And then you go, oh my God, I went down to Los Angeles and I figured out my beliefs and my values. You know what happens? If you figured out your beliefs and values and you did it in 5 minutes, you know what your customers are going to see instantly? If they're right or if they're wrong. When I do these for clients and they're accurate, none of their clientele is surprised. They're happy because it's been articulated, but they're not surprised. That's the key. You don't want to surprise people, you want to articulate who and what you are and why you exist. Because when you do this, you get no money. But because you love and because you believe and because you're giving everybody hugs, they're happy too, but they become advocates and not consumers. So guess what happens with advocates? They love your beliefs, but there's no money. They love you, oh my God, they love you. You all go out and play golf. You know, you go over to each other's house for Christmas, but they don't give you any money. If we strip this back for a second and put it and personify it, that's your mom. How many here, is anyone here, has your mom ever purchased from you? My mom hasn't. My mom has never bought branding from me or strategy, and she won't. It's not going to happen. It's also your best friend who says, oh my God, when you put that page up, that was awesome. Doesn't mean anything. Deeper. So what do we want then? So we realize focusing on money is a bit of a trap. We realized focusing on love is a bit of a trap. The only obvious place to go is to balance it out. You need to balance this out so it actually makes sense. You want to be respectful to the people that you're talking to. Because if you're not, and what I mean by respect, let's look at Facebook for a second. If I go on my Facebook and sell all of my friends from high school and all of my friends today, and if I shamelessly go on there every day and try to sell them branding packages, is that respectful or disrespectful? That's what I mean. Be respectful. Find out who you want, and if you need separate pages and separate websites because it's that important to you, do it, if that's what you need. And remember, the goal here, everyone, isn't for me to tell you what to do with your business. It's to give you a framework, how to understand, how to look at it, and start to figure out, oh, this goes there, and that goes there. I get it now. The brand's job isn't to fall in love with anyone. It's to be credible. But the products, that's where we connect, because that's the need and want. I'm going to show you how that connects here in a second. So the company has an offer, and if you offer it properly, and this is in balance, you get money and loyalty. Steve Jobs had money and loyalty. I don't know how the new guy's going to handle it, but he had money and loyalty, and a lot of companies do. And the thing is, it changes all the time. That's where the beliefs go. They go in the middle. The reason they go in the middle is because we're trying to gain rapport. So if I try to smash my beliefs upon you and make you believe what I believe, that's a whole different industry that started a long time ago. I'm not going to go any further on that. I'm just saying, the beliefs should be in the middle and the rapport should be in the middle, so you share them. So the product or service on your side, it's constant change. It's always changing and evolving. The beliefs don't, however. For my company, I'm not going to stop doing undeniable honesty. I'm not going to change that because I can make money. The needs and wants on the consumer side, they're constantly changing and evolving too, which is why the products constantly change and evolve, which is why we have Christmas, because we can put new products out, which is why we have New Year's, all these different ideas and all these different strategies for companies, because you can change all the time, because your market changes all the time. And it's nuance. You might say it slightly differently this year. You might use a slightly different word this year than last year just to keep up with the times, or you might change your strategy completely. And that's down for you guys to figure out what's important and how it works. So if we do this and this works perfectly, and it's in a constant state of change, but let's say we get there. Now you're happy, and they're happy, and look how close you are together now because you're in rapport. And the goal is, everybody, I like Honda as a company, which means I will purchase anything from Honda. I'll give it a second. I like Apple as a company. You may or may not, which means I will evaluate and I will consider whatever they put in front of me. Doesn't mean I'm going to buy it. Now, if we flip that and I only like the MacBook Pro and you try to sell me something else, I'm not interested. That's why your brand has to have the trust. Because if only one of your products has a trust, but your brand, nobody trusts it, I'll buy from you once and I'll never come back. So keep the trust where it's supposed to be and keep the personality where it's supposed to be. Because if you get them wrong, I'll buy one product that I love off you and you'll never, ever see me or my money again because we're out of rapport. All right, so what do we focus on? What do you believe in? I know this can sound trite, and I know it's like, well, no, I don't, of course I believe in stuff, but I need to make $5 this month or I'm dead. So make your $5 and then focus on what you believe in. So if you make $5 on the first day, you got the rest of the month. If it takes you the whole month, you got next month. That's the way it works. So halfway through, we talked about where does your money come from? That's what you got to focus on. What are the consumer's needs and wants? Figure it out. What are the required touch and visible points? So we talked about those. We had an idea for that. That is what creates your brand for you. So a brand is not a logo. It's not a tagline. It's not a website. You know these things where you see this ad and it says they'll build a brand and a website for you for $5 if you sign up for a hosting package? When we look at all of this, that's not a brand. That's just a little Band-Aid. It's a pretty little picture. And if all of these things are wrong and they're out of whack and it looks like, oh my God, you went and got this horrible, cheap website, you know what you look like? You look like the person trying to get my money. Or you put a bunch of pictures of you with your dog and you look like someone who loves dogs, but now you're on the other side. It doesn't work either. You got to balance it out. Take your time. Remember, for, Good to Great stated, when companies go through processes like this, it takes 5 years. My company has started to figure itself out. We're 8 years old. Started figuring it out 2 years ago because we had enough evidence, we had enough rapport on our own team, and we've done enough work that we could actually have something to look at. It takes time. So my goal with you guys is just start thinking about it. Have a look at how these things go, look at the categories, and just start thinking, maybe you have some categories that are empty. I can guarantee you none of us have an empty category for the products and service. We got something in there. That means we got somewhere to start. And I think that's close. So that's what I got. So if there's any questions, Matt, how much time do we have? Good. So that's it. I'm getting stripped of my mic. Thank you very much. And I hope I was helpful.
Cool. We got time for a Q&A. Anyone's got questions?
OK, cool. Does anybody have any questions?
David, how do you see video impacting the future of branding that? Because they're talking about how video is going to be so much more in the scene.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little about that?
So the question is, how does video impact? Well, how does it impact your brand and what's it going to change in the future? I mean, video is fantastic because if I give you a whole page of text, you've got to read it and come to a conclusion without context, which Matt talked about before, and without all these other elements. where when you do a video, if it's a good, well-done video, where you can articulate, people can watch it for 10 seconds and get so much out of it. So if you have the opportunity to articulate and show what you do with video, do it. And at the beginning, if it has to be a $300 video, hope for the bloody best. Find somebody with good taste and see if they can do it. But yeah, investing in video, it's incredibly powerful for your brand. And we've done strategies for that, and we've done all kinds of strategies around video specifically and putting them on YouTube. And one thing to dump in, I know some people use Vimeo, some people use YouTube. I use YouTube just because it's heavily tracked and there's a lot of numbers and all there. But the other thing I like is you can go in and you can do all the captioning. And you can do all the captioning in different languages and you can translate it. Do all those things. Help Google find you. So you can't just put a video and stick it in there. What you got to do is go and put all the captions in. It does most of the work for you, although it's trying to interpret English, and it's actually quite amusing. But you can go and retype it and get it right. Anything else?
Okay.
Just one question? All right. Last call? Yes.
I just turned it on.
I can make them available for you, yes. Email Matt after. I do have business cards if anyone wants my card.
No.
Oh, sorry. No, you can't have them.
No.
Email him.
Email David.
Okay, email me. I'll be available.
Just email me the slides and I'll email it to everybody.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you.